welcome to Miss Mando, a podcast about the latest in the disc golf world as a whole and locally here in Ontario. We have a absolute jam-packed show this week. We have 2 Disc Golf Pro Tour events to talk about, disc golf picking up in Ontario, finally. We got tournaments to talk about. But first, let's introduce some of the other guys here. We'll send it over. Sean Galbraith, how are you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic. Had a great weekend of disc golf over at the King's Forest Open that I think we're going to talk a little bit about. Yeah, it's great and very happy to be back with you guys.
Love it, love it, love it. Galen, how are you doing this week, my friend?
What up? What up? Also doing very well. Also coming off of a mixed but very fun weekend at the King's Forest Open, and just a couple short hours ago, playing a casual Tuesday tags round at Brawny Creek. That was colder and muckier and snowier than I expected, but still a lot of fun. Got to especially shout out my good friend Mr. Tobin Izat, who aced hole 18 at Brawny, shorts to yellow with a giant Anheuser over those massive pine trees, if you know hole 18 at Brawny. So stoked for my friends, stoked for myself, and stoked to be hanging out with you guys.
Owen is an animal. There's some other aces to talk about, but I think we might get to that a little bit later in some tournament recaps when we talk about how we did. But yeah, like I said, we have an absolute jam-packed show. So let's get right into it with some tournament recaps. 2 weekends ago, we had the first DGPT Plus event of the season with the Waco Annual Charity Open, obviously down in Waco, Texas. This is played at Brazos Park East, aka the Beast. And this year there was actually a second course playing on a golf course called Lake Waco. DGPT Plus events give a player 125% of the points that they would receive at a standard DGPT event. So the winner of this event will get 125 points towards the season standings. In FPO, Kristen Tatar wins by 7 strokes, cruising in by the end, taking it down over Ohn Scoggins in her first event of the year after missing that season opener in Florida. Kristen actually trailed Ella Hansen by 6 and Ohn by 4 after 2 rounds, but she shot a -7 hot round in round 3 while Ella and Ohn were struggling and took a 5-stroke lead going into the final round, taking 11 strokes in one round from the leader. And then in the final round, was just able to cruise to the victory. Got a feel for Ella, who for the second year in a row lets a lead slip away in this event. Last year, probably a little more heartbreaking, happening on like the last few holes. But Ella actually has the most 1,000+ rated rounds in FPO without a win at Elite Series or major events. She shot a career high 1035 rated round in the second round and 1,008 in the first round, giving her 18 total 1,000+ rounds. The next closest without a win is Hannah Blumrus with 10. We'll throw it over to you first, Galen. Kind of what were your kind of post round thoughts of the FPO division down in Waco?
Yeah, and this is probably a bit of a preview of what we're about to talk about next with the Open at Austin. But one of my thoughts, taking those two as a collective, was that I thought it was interesting the back and forth that we saw between Owen and Kristen. I mean, we had a season last year where Kristen Tatar was, she had tournaments where she didn't win, but I mean, it was clear, I think, to any of us that were paying attention, she was a head and shoulders above the field. And now, taking obviously a very small sample size, of the last 2 major events here. I wonder if perhaps we have less of a runaway this year and a bit more of a back and forth between Kristen Tatar and Ohn Scoggins. And here there was a 7-stroke victory for Kristen, but looking forward, and I know I'm previewing it, we'll get there in a second, but looking at the Open at Austin, I wonder if we'll see them trading blows instead of Kristen running away with it. Those top 2 rated FPO players, I wonder where the season goes, and I'm really jacked up to see it.
It's going to be fun to watch for sure. Sean, what about you? I hear that you might have a crazy theory about something to do with Kristen Tatar relating to her play.
So it's something that that my wife and I have been sort of watching, and our theory is that Kristen plays worse when Silver, her partner, Silver Lot, is her caddy. I have absolutely no statistics to back this up. It is purely a harebrained theory and a something we're going to be looking for this year. was a little bit true this weekend, or at Waco. Even though she won it, she had to come back to win it. But I don't know. It's a sense. I feel like she does better when he's not caddying for her. Um, the other thing is just like going back to Ella. I don't know what it is with Waco and Ella, but it has that event has her number for some reason. Like it's just I hate to see it. I love Ella. She's fantastic, but there's just something about that course, and she just can't quite get that final round together. Last year it was at the Beast. This year it was at Lake Waco. I don't know, something in the water in Waco that just like it just saps her final round, and you hate to see it.
This year, it was almost made worse a little bit too, because it wasn't just a last round meltdown. Because last year it was only 3 rounds, so it was in the final round, but it was the third round and the fourth round this year where she performed, much under her capabilities. We all know Ella has the capabilities to get the win. She's been in contention numerous times. She has a Silver Series win, but it's only a matter of time. And this might be previewing a little bit too from when we talk about our picks that we made, but I believe I picked Ella and, felt on top of the world about that. Galen's giving me a weird
For
look. Maybe I didn't pick
for
Ella. Uh,
No, you did. You did.
okay. I felt on top of the world through 2 rounds, especially after her second round when, like I said, shot 10:35. Crazy hot round, but she can't seem to hold on. It's interesting. Can't really figure out exactly why that happens to her.
I had picked Evelina. I think coming off her win in Florida, she had a great tournament. She finished fourth, but she couldn't quite go back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice to see
Fourth,
improvements in Evelina though.
Absolutely.
yeah, fourth notably is almost as good as first, but not quite.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not
Same
to
for
talk trash about
Elias, Ricky
Evelina.
Bobby.
Yeah, no, I was more looking to talk trash on Sean, but love seeing Evelina taking steps this year. I think we've all known for a while that if there are these little things she can clean up in her game, she could easily be competing at the very top of FPO. Not that she's not already, but even more so. And so you love to see her, with a confident putt and great upshots. And she's always had those crazy drives. So
Hmm.
shout out
Absolutely.
Evelina. So Robbie, what do we got over on the MPO side?
So yeah, over on the MPO side, Gannon Burr, he backs up his win at the Memorial and takes down a win in a thriller over Nicholas Antela and Luke Humphreys. Luke and Gannon went into the final round tied for the lead, while Nicholas was 2 strokes back on the chase card. But at one point, he had actually developed a 3-stroke lead. Unfortunately, he would bogey the par 3 17th. He just kind of shanked it over to the left, landed on the golf green. And then with the lead card having more holes to play, they just had more time to catch up. So he left that door wide open for them. And Gannon would take advantage. He hit a insane birdie putt uphill from was registered on PDGA Live as 61 feet. I believe it was like slightly windy too, and just typical Gannon just stabbed it right in dead center, perfect putt, and that tied him for the lead going into the final hole. Or sorry, that left him 1 stroke behind Luke going into the final hole, but tied with Nicholas in second place. Going into the par 4 hole 18. Luke would unfortunately find OB on his second throw and missed the par saving putt on hole 18, which gave Gannon a chance to hit a birdie putt from 25 feet for the 1-stroke win, which of course he cashed dead center. He put on a putting clinic through the whole weekend, though, training a total of, which might be my new favorite stat to keep track of every week, 1,412 feet of total putts with an average putt of 19.6 feet, which is absolutely insane because I 20 around right around 20 feet is when my putting percentage starts to go way down. So to hear Gannon is averaging that, mind blowing. Both of those stats, of course, led the field. He also ranked first in strokes gained putting with 9.28, a full 2 strokes better than second place in that stat. This is Gannon's 5th Elite Series or major win of his career, the most of any player since he won his first at the 2022 United States Disc Golf Championship. One thing of note, Calvin Heimberg didn't compete in this event. He took the weekend off to rest a nagging elbow injury. Not expected to miss any more time, but possibly something to keep an eye on for the rest of the year. And I want to give a shout out to Nate Sexton, who shot rounds rated 1056 and 1059 in rounds 1 and 3, getting himself onto the lead card for final round. Struggled a bit in the final round. He ended up in a tie for 10th. But when I was first getting back into disc golf and was falling in love with Jomez coverage and all that, Nate quickly turned into one of my favorite players on tour. And it's just awesome to see him still out there, playing at the top of the game in between weekends when he's not still doing Jomez commentary, but I know he does Pro Tour commentary sometimes as well. So good to see Nate still out there, doing some awesome things. But throwing it over to you guys, Sean, let's go over to you first this time. Let's hear some of your post Waco reactions from the MPO side.
So I was a little surprised that Luke Humphrey didn't at least contest the OB green shot. Like, where did it go out of bounds? Could he have gotten a little bit closer up there? I mean, all he had to do was sort of lobby his the other card mates and get one other guy to agree that it was a little bit farther up, and tie goes to the player, and maybe gets a little bit closer. Maybe throw a provisional. Who knows? With so much on the line, I would have. I don't know. It wasn't. I don't think it was that necessarily that cut and dry that he didn't go out of bounds a little bit farther up. I think he could have maybe challenged it a little bit, or at least pushed the issue.
It was tough to tell on the video, at least from watching it live. It was hard to tell exactly where he went on the green, and he still gave it like a real good bid to throw in for par from what was that, 120 feet, something like that. And gave it a real good bid to go in, almost cashed it, which that would have been absolutely electric. But yeah, that would have been crazy. But Galen, over to you. What are some of your post Waco thoughts on the MPO side?
I'll keep it short and sweet, man. Love seeing Gannon take down a win. I mean, we're going to chat, I think, later with Chris Oz, and one of the things we're going to talk about is how bright the future of the sport is, whether it's here in Ontario or around the world. And he's one of the biggest names in the sport, but it's easy to forget Gannon is a very young man, and seeing him take down big tournaments like this, and seeing AB take one down not that long ago. That was a great reminder that, as much as the old guard, the Pauls, the Calvins, the Rickies, are easily able to hang with anybody out there, there is a bright future for disc golf, and some of those folks that are at the earliest stages of their career are still competing for the biggest titles. So, I'm sure we're all happy to see anybody win for the most part, but, shout out Gannon as a young man taking down a big tournament. You love to see it.
It's amazing that so far this year, Anthony Barella is the oldest player to win an event.
That's crazy.
He's the senior statesman of the Pro Tour so far for the men's side.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane. I believe it's the entire top 4 in the disc golf Pro Tour standings right now on the MPO side are 22 or younger, or 23 or younger, one of the two, which is
Lord,
absolutely insane.
As an old man, that just makes my knees hurt more.
Right? I know. It's crazy. But there are a few Canadians in the field as well. Sean, let's send it over to you to give us a little Canadian roundup down in Waco.
So we had 3 Canadians in the event. Thomas Gilbert, our guest last week, Max Regitnig, and Chantel Badinsky. Unfortunately, Lake Waco and the Beast were not very kind to any of them. They didn't make the cut on round 4. Thomas finished 72nd. Max finished in 103rd, and Chantel finished in 40th. Of note, there was a lot of DNFs at this event. Five MPO players didn't finish the tournament, and one FPO. Maria Oliva was the one FPO, and she had the strange circumstance where she left her bag with her mom in Dallas and had to like borrow a bunch of discs that she's like never thrown before and try and play. She ended up DNFing to have a little more sort of a physical and mental break before getting into the rest of the season. Totally fine, totally respectable. But by comparison, the 2 weeks before at the chess.com, only one MPO player DNF'd and two FPO players. And like that tournament had like really bad tee pads, and the on-course conditions weren't very good. So I was kind of surprised that we had so many DNFs on this one.
I think I may have heard some complaints about tee pads on the Lake Waco course as well. So could be a contributing factor to that. But
yeah, they were
nothing super major out there, and we see everybody back on the course.
The Lake Waco tee pads were they were all installed just for the event, and the golf course didn't want anything sort of permanent, so they were all built like above ground, and so you had to like step up onto it as part of your run up, right, and then not fall off the other end of it. Not ideal, and maybe it's something that the Pro Tour can hopefully maybe standardize going forward, have like a larger minimum length and width.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think now that we're talking about it, I think I actually remember, I think it might have been Paul Ulibarri had posted in his story after the event, looking to see if anybody had video of him falling off the front of one of the tee pads where he might have twisted up his knee or his leg in some sort of way. Yeah, definitely need to see some better tee pads on the Pro Tour if that's, been complaints in back-to-back events to start the season. But we talked about it earlier, so let's get into it now. We made some picks last week for this tournament. Galen, why don't we give a little bit of tell us how we did for our picks from last episode?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I would say the reason that folks are tuning in this week is to have this recap of how our picks went at Waco. Of course, this is people are at the edge of their seats. So maybe we'll start off with Shawnee G. He had Ricky Wysocki on the MPO side and Evelina on FPO. Ricky had a sneaky good weekend. My memory, and this is a couple weeks back at this point, is that he wasn't necessarily right at the height of contention at any one point, but slid quietly into 10th place, which is very respectable in a large field like that. And Evelina, really strong weekend, just missed the podium, sliding in at 4th place. So, talking about seeing progress in her game, you love to see her getting another top 5. Robbie, I think you had Ella Hansen and Bradley Williams, if memory serves. And Ella, as we discussed, sort of slid off of that top spot, and you hate to see it. I haven't met her, but I was lucky enough to trail a card where she was caddying for James Proctor at Worlds last year, and just seems from that and from the coverage that I've seen to be an absolute sweetheart. And so you really want to see her take down a win at some point. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be that weekend. And Bradley Williams as well. I loved your logic of taking him to make some noise down in Texas, but still a little further down. Looks like I neglected to write the exact position down, but I know he's somewhere in the low 30s. I think it was 31st, 32nd, something like that. So I love where your head was at. Unfortunately, those folks didn't convert in the way that you might have liked that weekend, but I still think the logic there was sound. And I had Anthony Barella, a B on the MPO side, and Kristen Tatar in FPO. I mean, I think we all probably had Kristen Tatar in FPO, but I was the one that actually got to say, hey, I'm choosing this person. You guys made more responsible choices. Kristen almost left the field, finished 7 strokes ahead. took down first. AB held his own on the MPO side. Again, it was sort of quiet. I don't feel like there was any point where I went, AB is a real threat to win, but he slid into fourth place. So I was pretty happy with that for those two picks. And on the Kristen side, I was initially going to suggest heading into this episode before we had seen the results over at the Open at Austin, maybe we think about, in fairness, setting a rule because of how last year went, that as we're making picks going forward, nobody takes Kristen, because last year she was so far such a head and shoulders above the field that it felt, I don't know whether you're playing in a fantasy league or having a conversation with your friends, like the person that's choosing Kristen Tatar has got a bit of an unfair advantage. But we're going to get to it in a minute. But the Open at Austin really sort of, and again, small sample size, just a few tournaments, but really sort of changed how I felt about that. I mean, we saw Ohn lapping the field there. So I'm not really sure that I feel the same way. I was going to, like, heading into our conversation about this, I was going to say, well, I got to choose Kristen, but maybe let's make a rule against doing that going forward. But I'm curious where you guys are at. Maybe Sean first and then Robbie. Do you guys have any thoughts on if we want to add an anti-Kristen Tatar rule because she's just too damn powerful? Or do we want to keep things open as we're making picks to anybody we want to choose?
I think I'm thinking you can pick Kristen. But
I won't, but if you want to, you go ahead.
But if you do pick Kristen, I think you have to pick somebody else as well.
Like that.
Of course, Kristen is sort of the default pick. But like if she doesn't, who do you think is going to win? I think most of the time it'll probably be Ohn. But there's a lot of dark horses out there who could pop off on any weekend, and let's talk about them as well.
Talent in the field is rising, but I think Kristen right now is still so OP. She, of course, won at Waco. We'll get to Austin, but of course had a great finish there. I propose that if we want to put something like a limit on it, that maybe we allow you're able to pick Kristen, but we limit the amount of times that you can pick her in this season during our picks here, and maybe say a max of 5 times for Kristen or something like that.
Let's just say
the total events.
You can't pick her 2 weeks in a row.
Or that, yep.
That's simple.
I honestly like both of those bits of feedback. My vote, just so we get more names in the conversation more often, I would say I like Sean's initial idea of saying you can call Kristen any week you want, back to back, or every week. But if you ever name Kristen Tatar as your preferred choice, you have to say, yeah, obviously I'm choosing Kristen, but in absence of her winning, here is somebody else that I think is going to take this one down. I like that a lot because I think it gets more names in the conversation.
She's almost the free space in the bingo card, right? So like
100%.
Of course.
100%.
Yes. But
yeah.
Well, I love that. And, we were talking about how much we respect her insane performances. But for me, again, this sort of like conversation was brought on by the fact that things did not go, I mean, they went her way because she played incredible, but she didn't take down the Open at Austin. So let's throw over to Robbie now. If you want to recap first the FPO and a really impressive weekend by Ohn Scoggins to take things down. And then I'm sure the MPO and other conversations will follow.
Yeah, it was a super exciting weekend. Even if on the MPO side it wasn't exactly close coming down the end, it was a historic performance put on in both divisions. So yeah, let's dive right into it. We had the third stop of the 2024 Pro Tour, still in Texas, down at the Open at Austin. This is played on a temp course at Harvey Penick Park, which was completely redesigned after last year's tournament. The new layout is a huge improvement over last year, which was probably one of the worst, if not the worst, on tour. Next year, the event will be actually owned by the Pro Tour, and what that looks like is anyone's guess. But hopefully they can hire a good course designer to come in if they do make any changes on that course. But getting into the play, we'll start, on the FPO side. It was the weekend of the dog, Ohn Scoggins, as she absolutely destroys the field, winning by 11 strokes over second place Kristen Tatar. In the second round, Ohn shot a neg 13 round, 5 strokes better than the next best. And that round is currently rated at 1055, which is tied for the 5th highest rated FPO round of all time. She would shoot the hot round again in round 3, a neg 10, 1042 rated round, which is tied for the 13th highest rated FPO round of all time. Combining her 3 rounds, Owen had a tournament average rating of 1029, which is the highest event average in FPO history, breaking Paige Pierce's record of 1024 from the 2020 Jonesboro Open and 2021 USWDGC. Owen was so dominant this weekend that Kristen actually averaged 1,000 rated for the tournament and still lost by 11 strokes. Just absolutely insane. So
That's
it's not
insane.
it's crazy. So it's not surprising at all that Owen also dominated the stats leaderboards as well. She ranked first in fairway hits, park percentage, C2 in regulation, C2 putting, strokes gained tee to green, and strokes gained in C2, while ranking second in almost every other statistical category. Surprisingly, the only ones that she didn't rank that high in was C1X putting and strokes gained C1X, both of which she ranked 11th. And we all know Owen. If anyone says anything about Owen, it's that she's got to be the best putter on the planet in the FPO division. She in the All Star event was, putting up scores similar to the MPO guys. So a phenomenal putter, but it was actually her driving and staying consistent that was just it lapped the field this week. Kat Merch had a great start in the tournament, shooting a neg 7 1020 rated round in round 1. That was her highest rated round ever at an Elite Series or major event. She was on the lead card in second place behind Owen going into that final round, which, in my opinion, just has to be two of the most fun personalities in FPO on one card together. They might make up two of my dream card mates just because it looks like it would be so much fun to have those two personalities and those energetic women on a card together. It looks incredibly fun. Weird stat. Kristen Tatar has never won back-to-back events on the Pro Tour, even with how dominant she was last year, where it seemed like she basically never lost. She didn't win back to back, and that trend continues here into 2024. We'll throw it over to you, Sean, first on this one. What are some of your post Austin thoughts about the FPO division? And I know you might
So,
have a potential hot take for us here
oh
too.
yeah, it's scorching. First, yeah, the Kristen shooting 1,000 rated and losing by 11 strokes is just incredible. Um, ratings day just came and went. She hit 999 rated. In the next few, between now and the next ratings day, she's dropping, I think, two tournaments that are like in the 980s range, and she's picking up 1,000 rated tournament average. With the recency bump, this might be enough to get her over the 1,000 rated mark. That would be pretty cool. What can you say about Ohn Scoggins' performance? It was so incredibly dominant. I love watching her play. I love watching her style, her consistency, the fun that she had coming up 18, doing the Simon high fives to everyone, getting ready. And it's really too bad that she probably should have been disqualified from the tournament after. And this is the Sean Galbraith patented hot take of the week. So, why she should have been disqualified? Because the PDGA, in the competition manual, section 3.03 sub C sub 4, under player misconduct, says that the public display or use of alcohol from the 2-minute warning until scorecards are submitted, it's prohibited. In the winner's circle, so she taps out 18, crushes it, gets the Stetson, party. She's showered with beer. Of course, it's Ohn Scoggins. Where's the beer, Ohn Scoggins? And she's handed a beer from one of the other players. I think it was Jen Allen, but I don't recall exactly. There was a few beers going around. So she's handed a beer. It's clearly a beer. It's cracked open. She takes a drink, walking to the score tent to submit her scorecard. She has not submitted her scorecard yet. The rules say there is no warning for this offense. The player will be immediately disqualified, and other players are required to report it. And then the tournament director is required to report this to the PDGA. This is an aggressive rule, but it's in there, and it's not the first time, and wouldn't be the first player to have been disqualified from a tournament for violating this. The other one, I forget who it was, Valerie Jenkins, maybe? I forget.
I believe it was Valerie Jenkins, Santa
Yeah,
Cruz Masters Cup, I think.
Yeah, her caddy, wasn't even her.
Yep.
Her caddy had a beer in a beer koozie, and it was empty, and she was disqualified for it. So the hot take is that Ohn should have been disqualified per the competition manual, and it would have been an absolute travesty if that would have taken place. But being a rules nerd, we'll talk a little bit about rules, I think, coming up later on. It's not my rule. Don't hate the messenger. Hate the rule.
It's crazy. Like, first of all, if that was to be called on, like, you're literally finished the final round, you gave the trophy to the competitor, and then someone comes in and points that out and brings that up to a TD, I think would have to bring like an immediate, at least rewording of the rule or something like that, like after the final putt of the final round or something. I obviously, I mean, I understand it in like smaller tournaments, but you see it all the time now. I think even on uh or no, it was actually in the FBO field. You saw someone, I don't know who it was. Someone came in and was spraying Ohn with what looked like champagne. And I know I've seen that too. I think James Conrad had people doing that to him when he won USDGC. In big moments, it just kind of happens. But how devastating would that be to lose a tournament like that?
It would be like, there would be like Viking raids on the PDGA headquarters and like burning down the building if for Ohn Scoggins, like, come on. But I mean, it's a rule.
It says immediate disqualification in the rules.
Don't hate me because I'm right.
Galen,
Yeah,
how
no,
much of a madman is Sean?
no, I think the Viking raids would be totally justified.
Mhm.
I mean, Sean said, "Don't hate the player, hate the rule," and I certainly do. I mean, I think it would be different if we had a player that was, I think we would like for the pros in the sport to set a good example. If we had a pro that somehow was able to win a tournament while stumbling around a green, swinging from a bottle of whiskey, that would perhaps not be the best for the image of the Pro Disc Golf Association and pro disc golfers who are on tour. But I don't see there being any inherent harm in a pro that's played a whole weekend of disc golf, probably thrown close to 100 holes, has taken down a hard fought win, um, cracking a beer and having a sip after the final putt is in. I don't know what the timer would have said, but well after the tournament should have, for all intents and purposes, ended. So, yeah, I mean, maybe this is an opportunity for a conversation about whether the rule as it's currently worded makes sense, and my feedback would be perhaps it does not make sense. I'm also curious because I'm not as much of a rules nerd, but I admire those who are. The way Sean had phrased it earlier was that the players on the card are obligated, and the TD is obligated to disqualify or to ask for disqualification of a player. I would throw it back to you because I genuinely don't know. Is perhaps the issue with them not having made that call that they were technically called upon by the rule book to make. I mean, Ohn might have had that beer 30 seconds later, but if the players were obligated or the tournament director was obligated to say something about it, perhaps it's them that abdicated their duty, not Ohn Scoggins. I don't know how that's quite worded, but an interesting sort of thought experiment for me is the issue with the person that violates it or the people that are obligated to report the violation? Because there's two discrepancies here now.
All the above. Technically, all the players, the TD, and the player themselves, they all have responsibilities under the player misconduct section of the competition manual, and it doesn't look like. I mean, who's going to do it? Like the like, can you imagine whoever would actually report this? They would be they would be murdered. Like, you don't mess around with, in Texas. Like, they have all of the guns, and you would be straight up murdered in the parking lot if you took that victory away from Own. I would never do it. Like, there's no way in hell would I have the even the remotest thought of doing that. But FYI for everybody out there, this is a rule and it applies to C tiers and above. Basically, any sanctioned PDGA event, and for all the others, you lose if you lose and your competitor, has a little drinky drink. Maybe it's a win for you. Know the rules so you can use them to your advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, the main part of this coming up is the wording of until scorecards
Are
are
submitted.
submitted,
Yep.
because the intent of the rule is obviously to stop people from drinking alcohol while playing their rounds, which 100% agree with that. I played in an unsanctioned tournament one time where a guy went through more than a six pack in the final round. We were on lead. This was lead card too. He might have been the person that I was chasing. Maybe that's why I came from behind for the win. But obviously, you wouldn't want that on the pro tour in any sort of way. So, like, obviously, agree with that. But yeah, the wording of posts of after scorecards are submitted. If someone wanted to be a stickler about it, which, let's be real, is never going to happen in disc golf because no one calls anyone
On
on
anything.
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 It was a big topic of conversation at the memorial with
Yeah.
Cupcake,
Yep.
and how long it takes him to putt.
Hmm.
No one calls anyone on anything in disc golf. But if someone did and someone was following the letter of the law on that rule,
Hmm.
then yeah, it would be quite the headline, that's for sure.
Hmm. I want to highlight one other player. So this player was number one in strokes gained, C1X, number one in total putting distance made, and the highest average putting distance. And it's not somebody that, frankly, I would have expected. And it was Eliezer Midling. Now, we all know that she can bomb a disc. She's the current distance champion. She launched 503 feet at All Star Weekend. I frankly didn't appreciate her putting skills, though. She can putt. She can putt. Where she was falling apart in her game was sort of in the scramble and how many times she went OB. Um, Unfortunately, we kind of see this sometimes. These players who can really throw far. Sometimes they haven't quite got the control, and they can their OB percentage starts creeping up. But if she can sort of keep those shots in the fairway a little bit more, like she's going to be kind of the next Evelina if Evelina can keep up her putting game.
On super impressive. I would not have expected that coming from her, just based on what we've seen so far. Obviously, this is only her first year on tour, actually, as a touring pro. And everything that we've seen from her so far is just about the absolute cannon for an arm that she has, and just insane distance. So if you can put the whole package together, and she's super young too. She's 17, uh, I
Something like
believe.
that.
She's 16. I think
16
she's
years
still
old.
16. Yeah.
Which
Wild.
is absolutely insane. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not even close to being in her athletic prime.
No.
And if she can continue to, like you said, work on the staying actually inbounds part of the game as well, while still being really good at putting and throwing farther than anyone else. I mean, we could have someone that is insanely dominant on our hands looking into the future.
Absolutely.
One more player to mention. Paige Pierce. Uh, she finished a very unfortunate 40th. I went back through basically her entire career as much as I could find. And this was the lowest she has unfortunately placed in any tournament in her entire career, going back to her amateur days, as far back as the PDGA records went. She's never, I think the second lowest she had like a mid low 30s once. And yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see right now. She said on social media that she's gotten sort of most of her distance back from her injury. She's throwing, around 400, but something isn't quite clicking with her game. On Instagram, she said, mentally, I'm feeling a mix of things. I'm feeling positive about recovery and trying to be patient with myself and my outcome on the course. I'm aware of what's going wrong, but having a hard time figuring out why. And also, at what point do I stop saying, hey, this was a bad week or bad few weeks. Let's look forward to the next event versus, okay, I need to address something. And I as a not very good disc golfer, I really appreciate hearing from, the greatest player who has ever played the game for FPO, sort of be public about the struggles and what she's going through. She's a human and she's sort of dealing with some stuff, and I think it's great that she's feeling comfortable enough to open up to her fans. I really hope that whatever it is, she can make it click, because the sport is absolutely better with her, being a real competitor in it.
Agreed. To me, it almost feels a little bit like Kobe and LeBron, in the sense that we never, at least, yeah, I'm pretty sure we never did. We never got, and I'm a basketball fan, Kobe versus LeBron in the finals matchup. It never happened. Everyone wanted to see it. LeBron coming in and superseding Kobe as the best player. I want to see Kristen and Paige battling it out at the top of the game, as Paige being that, the old guard of the FPO, in my opinion, like you said, still the greatest of all time in the FPO division. Kristen is on one heck of a streak, and if she keeps it up, is on that pace for sure if she can keep going. But the longevity of Paige's career and the titles and the dominance that she's had in seasons, she's still the greatest of all time in my opinion. And I want to see her back at that top, pushing the field, like she used to. It used to, what Kristen is doing now, it used to be Paige Pierce, and I definitely want to see more of that. But at the same time, it's also the combination of age, injury, and the fact that the field is just getting so much deeper. Like Paige finishing in 40th, I wonder how many times in her career there weren't even 40 players in a division. How many times in her career there weren't even 20 players in a division.
Yeah.
So the growth of the FPO game is
Amazing.
starting to phase out the old guard a little bit as well. But if Paige is still elite, if she can put together everything, she can still be at the top of the game. So I'm with you. I really hope that I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, we were talking earlier about, we're seeing Ohn and Kristen perhaps trade blows early on the season, and imagining a world where Paige Pierce, Kristen Tatar, and Ohn Scoggins are all at the top of their game and taking tournaments from each other week in and week out. I mean, that sounds like must-see TV. So, I'm looking forward to and hope for a world where Paige is back at the top of her game and feeling 100% not that long from now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to see more players at the top of the FPO field. We've had back-to-back, winners now by large margins, and I want to see, more players vying for those. Obviously, we've got more up-and-comers, but I want to see Paige, Katrina Allen, multiple world champion. Sarah Hokum has been around for a long time. Awesome to see. It would be awesome to see her up at the top of leaderboard still. Jen Allen won last year. That's what I want to see. And that's what we're getting in MPO this year so far, which, let's move on and talk about the MPO, because it was one of the wildest finishes to a tournament I have watched in some time. with the combination of the scores and then the weather that was going on as well, finishing in basically the pitch black. But yeah, over on the MPO side, we had Nicholas Antila winning and becoming the very first MPO player from Finland to win on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which for me personally is awesome to see because when I was first getting into it, one of my favorite players was Seppu Paju. I loved following his prodigy blogs, and him and Kale Leviska were I threw a lot of prodigy back in the day because of them. I didn't actually look on social media, but I can only imagine that Seppo is so proud as like a, he was the leading force of Finnish players back when I was first starting, and now there's so many, and to see it finally break through is awesome, especially with Nicholas, who has been so close so many times. But he takes it down in a thrilling finish over his Discmania teammate Kyle Klein. Discmania looking like the winners of the offseason so far this year. The final round in MPO was actually shortened by 3 holes due to weather delays earlier in the day. So holes 12, 15, and 16 were removed for the MPO field. I'm assuming they used those holes, just they were the easier holes to par. So it wasn't an advantage or a disadvantage really taking away those for the entire field. Nicholas had a 2-stroke lead going into the final round, but he had some early round struggles. He missed a C1 putt on hole 1, went OB on hole 4, and took a double bogey on hole 6. He at one point had fallen all the way into a tie for 5th, 4 strokes off the lead. And Kyle Klein was on an absolute tear from the 3rd card, shooting a scorching 12 under through only the 15-hole round, of course, being shortened by 3, taking only, I believe it was 4 pars because he had an eagle in there as well. And he finished his round with the clubhouse lead. And, he was looking to become, there's never been a Pro Tour winner from the 3rd card. So he was looking to make a little history there. Calvin Heimberg and Anthony Barella were in the mix from the chase card. Anthony Barella ultimately cooled off towards the end, but Calvin was right into it in the hole 18, tied for the lead with Kyle. But he unfortunately went OB on his drive and then gave himself a great upshot to give himself a putt for par, but unfortunately missed it, which ended his title hopes. But Nicholas still had holes to play. He had a chance to tie Kyle for the lead with 3 holes to play, but he missed a putt from what looked like 15 feet or less. It looked like something that I was doing multiple times this past weekend as well at the Kings Forest Open. A little more higher stakes for Nicholas on the Pro Tour. But it clearly didn't bother him because on the next hole, hole 17, he jammed an absolutely perfect putt for birdie from 46 feet to tie Kyle for the lead. And then on hole 18, he sank an absolutely perfect 35-foot birdie putt for the win. And it was one of the coolest moments I've seen on a disc golf course in a while, getting to see him let out all that raw emotion. We usually, don't get to see that from Nicholas at all, but he was jumping up and down. He went up and hugged his caddy. A whole bunch of other his Finnish friends came in and were giving him big hugs. Crowd was chanting his name. It was so cool to see. And then even in his post round interview, I was getting a little choked up listening to him talk about how much, it means to him to get the win finally. And, how much he gives up every year coming over from Finland, being away from family for months of the year to come and compete. It was just, it was a thrilling finish to an awesome tournament. We'll throw it over to you first, Galen. What are some of your takeaways from this tournament? Some of your post-round thoughts on the MPO side?
Yeah, no, 100%. Once again, I'll keep it sort of simple. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to is the Chris Johnston Show. In addition to being a disc golfer, I love hockey, and Chris and his co-host Julian talk hockey from like an insider perspective on a regular basis. And a segment they have, they call stick taps. Like, I don't know if either of you guys play or watch hockey, but like it's not uncommon when something cool happens, something you want to celebrate, the players will sort of like tap their sticks on the ice. So much in that vein, I'll try and be brief here and just give a stick tap to Nicholas. Love to see him taking down a win. I didn't catch the full post round interview, but agreed the bits that I did catch, were sort of tearing at my heartstrings a little bit. So shout out Nicholas Antila for taking down a big win. You love to see it. Very happy for the guy.
How very Canadian of you, Galen, to give him some stick taps, and congratulations for the win. So on brand for this podcast. Sean, what about you? What are some of your thoughts coming off of the Open at Austin here?
So one of the things I thought was really interesting was so 3 round tournament, Cole Redolin, total putting distance 1,072 feet. I that's so much. It's more than like it was almost 100 feet more than second place, which is just a huge difference. Like third place was only 4 feet behind second place, so like he was way ahead. That like it's I love this new stat. I don't actually know what this stat means in terms of like is your game doing well or not? Because like if you have all your approach shots parked, like you just tapping in, no problem, just drop it in. Like your total putt made is going to be really low because you didn't have to do any work. And so, like, does that mean that you're just recovering from bad approach shots, or like, or is it does it mean nothing and it just means that both that your approaches weren't great, but you're such a great putter that it doesn't really matter, and that's also a good thing. Um, I know I'm kind of interested in watching this stat over the season and see, um, you know, are people who are making the most putting distance, are they actually winning events? Are they getting podiums? I don't know. It's a new one, so we'll have to sort of see how it goes. Um, he also had Cole also had the longest average putt at 21 feet and made 97% of C1X putts. Like he might be one of the sneaky best putters on tour right now. Like I don't like, you think of Calvin, you think of Gannon, like Marweed, of course, Proctor, but maybe Cole should be in that top pantheon right now, of putters. It's I don't know, again, sort of one to watch. Uh, by comparison, Nicholas, he was only stats king for one category. He was number one. It's for Circle One in regulation. Kyle Klein, 1 stroke behind, was also only top in one category, and for him it was strokes gained tee to green. I think this shows a lot of depth in the field. Like you're not getting one player or two players that are dominating, across the categories. Um, like it was looking at the stats breakdown for the weekend. Like there weren't a lot of players that had like tops in more than one category. It was just sort of all over the place. I wonder if this is sort of suggesting that the old adage of putt for dough may not be as relevant anymore. Um, that's.
I hope not, as a bad putter.
I mean, I hope that I'm not a good thrower. I'm also not a good putter. My scramble game is terrible, and all the other parts of my game are the best part of my game is probably finding the out of
Vibes.
bounds. No, no, finding the out of bounds. I
Oh
could be
yeah,
number
facts.
number one in OB, and surprisingly, I haven't won anything. So it's not really that surprising, I suppose. But I'm curious on Pro Tour if being the best putter is just not it's just not enough. It's not as important as maybe it once was. I don't know.
Certainly interesting. I mean, obviously Andrew Marweed has been one of the top putters on tour for years now, and he is not someone that's regularly contending for wins. He's actually had a pretty good start to this season, which is
Mm-hmm.
which is nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully he can keep that up. But yeah, certainly interesting. And on Cole. Speaking on him, in my opinion, I think Cole Redolin, of any of the young up and comers in disc golf, Gannon included, who is obviously right now the top of that tier.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cole Redolin has the highest ceiling of any of them. That include AB, Gannon, put all the young guns in there. but he unfortunately in that group might also have the lowest floor. Because he even last year there were a couple times where he would pop off with like a 15 under round, shoot 3 strokes better than anyone else, and then
Mhm.
follow it up with like a 5 under or something like that.
Yeah.
Or be on an absolute scorching front nine and then have like 3 double bogeys in the back,
Mhm.
to really hurt his round. So I think that he's the top of that young class if he could just become more consistent. And I do agree with you that I'm kind of confused as to what that stat means, the most
Yeah.
putting distance. It's a fun stat to follow. I like
Mhm.
seeing that number and seeing how high it can get, but I don't know how it'll translate to wins. I mean, obviously Gannon had that in Waco and took it down. This tournament, it's Cole Radalin, and he finished in a tie for sixth. So something to look at going forward in the season for sure.
Mhm.
There were also a couple of Canadians in this event too. Why don't we touch on those a little bit, Sean?
So messing with Texas continues to not work out well for the Canadians. Unfortunately, Max Regitnig came in 79th. Our friend of the show, Thomas Gilbert, came in at 93rd. Chantel Badinsky, she finished 29th, which was a nice improvement over Waco, but still unfortunately out of cash. Uh, I love seeing the commercials from Prodigy the last 2 tournaments because in there is Chantel's new, I guess, tour series or special edition disc, a Prodigy F3. It looks gorgeous with the hot air balloons on it. Um, it drops March 22nd. And I think you can pre-order it now from her sponsor, Disc Republic, and it helps support her on tour. I think everybody should go out and pick one up. And yeah, and I don't know. Hopefully the Team Canada can turn things around and start moving up the leaderboard this season.
Yeah, hopefully we can see some bounce back for the Canadians out on tour. We unfortunately in our last episode forgot to make any picks for the Open at Austin, so we have nothing to recap there. We'll say, of course, that I went 2 for 2 on predictions because I'm basically Nostradamus. But what we can move on to is some local tournaments. So moving off of the Pro Tour now, the Ontario scene has started to start up its year. We had our first sanctioned tournament, I believe, across Ontario. I could be wrong in that stat. Ontario is a big province, but we had the King's Forest Open going down, some others potentially as well. But Galen, let's throw it over to you. Let's talk some Ontario disc golf.
Yeah, I was just looking at our show notes, and it said something like throw to Galen for picks, and I was really hoping you would do that so I could say, yeah, it's very simple. None of us made any, and so we all won and lost at the same time. But yeah, I mean, the big thing for all of us that we just came off of this most recent weekend was the King's Forest Open. I mean, for my money, I had a great time. It was a bit of a mixed weekend for me. I think we talked about this in the first episode, but I'm an 870-ish rated golfer. Shot a pretty mediocre first round um, on the mids, plus 10, plus 12, something like that. Rated 850. Went into lunch going, this isn't a whole lot of fun as far as the discing goes. The company was great. I was hanging out with my friends Rob, Jake Kennedy, and Eric Fernandez, so the vibes were off the charts. But I was able to follow it up with a pretty good round after that sort of mediocre start. It was 917, 918 or so rated, which, as a player playing MA2, I'm always pretty content with. I know we both, or I should say you both, also played last weekend. So, and we had some highlights as well, not to preview anything too much, but why don't we throw to Robbie and then to Sean to let us know how your weekends went.
Yeah, this was it was a fun one. It's nice to be back out competing. I played in a ton tournaments last year. Basically became my entire life through the year, and I've been missing it. It felt really good to be out competing again. The vibes were great out there. It was a shotgun start tournament, so we actually got to see everybody for one big players meeting beforehand, which was awesome. Um, but yeah, my play, I have mixed feelings about my play. It was another typical Robbie roller coaster. I think that's just going to be my nickname going forward from now on, because in round one, I shot. So I'm a 922 rated player. I shot a 977 rated round in round one. I was one stroke off of the lead. Almost went bogey free too, if not for it was a decently windy day, and just had a crazy, wind slam. Just dropped my disc like crazy into some water. Gave me my only bogey. So thought I played absolutely extraordinary, and then I followed it up by shooting +6, 877 rated round. A full 100-point difference between round ratings to average, I think, 5 points above my player rating. So at least we're averaging above. Yep, we're moving in the right direction. But like happened plenty of times last year, it doesn't matter what round happens which too. I could have a bad first round. It'll mean I have a good second round. If I have a good first round, I have a bad second round. It's the amateur lifestyle that I live right now. I am the most consistent at being inconsistent. And yeah, but it was a fun weekend being on lead card in the final round, even though I was really bringing down the play of that card. It just felt awesome to be on. And we'll talk to him a little bit later, but shout out to TD Chris Ozolins, the Ozman, and Marcus Schmidt as well, the co-TD. Things went so smooth there, and I had a blast despite my lackluster second round.
It really was a fantastic tournament. I really love the King's Forest track, and the 21 hole layout that they did was a really nice mix of sort of the classic holes, removing some holes that could have been a problem, especially if we had some snow, which thankfully we had every other weather except snow, and then adding some truly evil new holes. Hole 18, the big horseshoe. Really, really terrible for a left-handed thrower like me. But super fun to play. Super fun to play. For me, I did the opposite of Robbie. I had 100 points difference between my first and second round. But I had an awful first round and a friggin' amazing second round. Averaging 7 strokes above my very meager 832 rating. Thank you. But the second round was when you're on the lowest card, which is the Sean Galbraith Memorial placement on the scorecard. Other than being totally DFL, nothing matters. So you can just sort of F it, like let's just go. Bomb everything. Who cares? It doesn't really truly, like amateur disc golf. It doesn't really matter anyway. But when you're absolutely battling to not be last place, it really, really doesn't matter. And sometimes you get amazing luck. And I got my very first tournament ace on hole 8, throwing across the river, a whopping 173-foot hole. It was
Raw power.
yeah, pure raw. The shortest ace I've ever gotten. I've now my fourth ace. I've gotten two with Robbie present. This was close enough to Robbie being present. He was on the same course at the same time. But it was, I mean, come on, it's a tournament ace. It was pretty hype. And the key is I paid into the ace pot. So always get the ace pot. Somebody else also got an ace, so they robbed me of some money. But I still cashed, $160 for the ace pot, of which I gave back 100 of it by buying ODSA raffle tickets. It's an amazing raffle, and you definitely want to get in on that. But I mean, it was again a roller coaster of an event. On one hole, I shot a 10. on a par 5, going OB 3 times. It wasn't great. It was the worst showing of any player in any division on that hole. But who cares? More throws, more fun. As we say, you didn't drive all that way to play less golf. So I can't wait for the next tournament, and I can't wait to play Kings Forest again next year or later this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love the new holes. I thought the tournament went off without a hitch. There were very minimal delays when there were any. Like, it all ran so smoothly. Shout out to Chris Ozolins and Marcus Schmidt for TDing a fantastic event. Also want to shout out Marcus and Eric Fernandez for launching their merch line, Lucky Lines. The tagline they've used, which I absolutely love, is "Positive minds find lucky lines." And they were able to launch, yes, let's go, Robbie, this weekend with these awesome shirts. The back having a King's Forest like stylized graphic on it, some stickers, some merch. So check those guys out at luckylines.ca, because I mean, the Ontario disc golf merch scene is a little thin. I got to shout out the boys over at T3 as well, but there's always space for new folks in that sphere. Shout out Diameter Apparel, but I mean, love to see a new group of guys, both of whom I love, moving forward with something like that. So that's awesome. As far as the tournament recap goes, as we were hinting at, we're going to hear from Mr. Chris Ozolins shortly, taking it down with a cool 13-stroke lead over another fellow Bronte Club member, Chris Brown. So Chris in first place and Chris in second place. We love to see it. But Chris literally lapping the field with a scorching 23 down, averaging a 1039 rated weekend. I know he was struggling with a bit of an injury last year, so maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later with him, but seems like he's in fine form this season. You'd love to see it. On the FPO side, we have a friend of myself and friend of the pod, even though she has been on it. She only had 2 episodes. Alicia Hums earning a hard-fought victory over Jessica Goulet. Rounding out the pro side, we had Jeff Malton taking down MP40, Jen Snow over Lisa Eshley and FP40. Certainly 2 more friends of the pod who we would love to chat with at some point. And Brian Grant taking down MP50. Also want to shout out some personal friends. Dennis Barnes scored a victory in MA40. Andrea Michaud took down FA40. Chris Oz's partner, Rachel Dubois. Rach took down a big win in FA2. I know last time she and I played a tournament together, she was joking about retiring. So I love, based on her results, so I love to see her taking down a win. Alyssa Saunders in FA3. And, got to shout out Sandbagger Extraordinaire, one of my best friends in disc golf, James Atkinson, one of the best guys in disc golf, but he mowed down the MA3 field. I think the final margin was 14, 16 strokes, something like that. My sources are saying he's already calling tournament directors to move up to MA2 for future events. With that rating this weekend, I think into the 950s, I'm wondering if MA1 might be a little bit better of a fit, but hey, one step at a time. We'll see.
James had an absolutely amazing weekend. Really, really big shout out to him.
Yeah, and we love to joke, but honestly couldn't have to a better guy. Love that man. Love to see him taking down a big and well-earned victory. He's been all over the top of the MA2 and 3 fields, or actually I should say over the top of the MA3 field for a while, but just hasn't been able to eke out that victory. He's been waiting to move to MA2 until he could take one down. So really love to see him take it down in decisive fashion. And as we're sort of moving out of our thoughts on the King Forest Open as as its own thing, seems only natural that we can transition now. So let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with an interview with the co-TD of the King's Forest Open, Mr. Chris Ozolins. And we're very happy now to be joined, going back to back with some pretty impressive Canadian disc golfers for the first 2 episodes of the pod, by Chris Ozolins, president of the ODSA, king of King's Forest, and representing my local club, Bronte Creek. So thanks for joining us on the pod, Chris. Super cool to have you. I'll throw over to you just quickly to start off with some thoughts on the King's Forest Open, which we're pretty hot off of here. So you TD'd You dominated the field. How are you feeling about those two factors? How was the tournament as a director, and how was it as again the king of King's Forest?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, boys, today on the podcast. It's pretty awesome. Um, it was great. Honestly, we were, for lack of a better term, blessed with a phenomenal week of March weather. I couldn't be any happier. I was prepping for that tournament to be in the snow, to be honest, and a little bit worried. Never played a sanctioned event in the snow, but yeah, everything turned out great. A little bit windy, but yeah, I don't know. Just having something at King's Forest before it shuts down for the year was really nice. There was a lot of first wins out there in different categories. Blake Sinclair, I know, in M1. My wife in FA2. Andrea Michaud in FA40. It was just a pretty cool weekend in March to celebrate some big victories for folks.
Yeah, I'm a little sad that we're wrapping our Kings Forest season in mid-March. I don't know if it's just me looking back this year thinking things are different, not remembering things correctly. But I feel like I just want a little bit more. I want like a couple of weeks more of disc golf. But super cool we got to send it off this way.
I was pulling the baskets out with Glenn, who's the head groundskeeper yesterday, and it felt sacrilegious every time one came out of the ground. Just like, oh, do we have to? But
I mean, it's not like they're opening the golf course tomorrow. Like maybe there's look at all the snow we got today. Like maybe we could get a few more rounds.
Yeah, I had friends that were sending messages last year around this time of like throwing to where the pins were. Like, oh, well, I would have got a birdie there. So, and just like playing cards through even without the basket. So,
oh well,
it's brawny now for us, so we'll stick to it.
We're here for a good time, not a long time.
Speaking of pulling baskets out, there were a few more out there for the tournament, which I love to see. Of course, I was out there playing on Sunday. From a tournament director's perspective and a course designer's perspective, what goes into your thoughts adding extra holes onto a course before a tournament like that?
Well, first off, I wanted to get as many people as we could into the tournament within reason. I won't put a 5-some out in the tournament, just going to slow down pace of play. But there's plenty of property out there. And even the traditional layout we had going, I thought it could be optimized a little bit more. And so there's some pretty cool property near the front, too. We put that island hole in to finish. I love putting a score separator to finish a course. Now, when we're doing shotgun start, it really doesn't matter. But for something like nationals, if you remember the last 3 holes there, they were meant to kind of separate and divide. Yeah, just getting a bigger field out there and upping pace of play with those extra holes, just to make sure that we got in a good time. And I had a lot of fun, honestly. And we're going to start the season with those 21 holes next year too. So
yeah, like I said, I personally loved all the changes, especially what might be my new favorite hole on the course, that new dogleg par 4 with the Mando, new hole 18. All the numbers confuse me now with the changes, but that hole is fantastic. So well done on the new design.
I was tentative. I thought, oh, this is going to be a mixed bag of reactions. So I'm glad you
yeah. So on that point, hang on. You mean the we're talking about the triple Mando par 4 where you're teeing off from beside the river? Which one are we talking about here? Hang on.
Hole 18, the big
Oh, the Mando wide? No, that was a fun one. Okay, I'm with you. I was gonna take you to task a little bit because that triple Mando took my lunch money a few times this weekend, but I love the single Mando.
I bogeyed that one as well. That was my one bogey from the longs. so it took both our lunch money.
Yeah, from the longs, that's reasonable. From the shorts, I should be performing a little bit better, but that's all right. That's why you are one of the kings of King's Forest, and I'm lowly MA2 player, but love it. So I know one of the things we wanted to ask you, and I actually got a preview because I didn't know this about you before, but I was chatting with your wife Rach this weekend. But just for the sake of the fact, yeah, I know, we didn't gossip too much, I promise. But I was going to ask you, so how long have you playing, just for the sake of this conversation and our audience, and how did you get introduced to the sport of disc golf?
Okay, I think
and also I'm curious how Rach's story matches yours. Actually, I should add
it's gonna match exactly. I guarantee it. This is my 13th year playing disc golf. It started at Bronte Creek. I got what I considered a throwaway gift, to be honest, for Christmas one year from my aunt. It was a set of 3 discs from Canadian Tire. It went right under the bed immediately and probably sat there for 2 years before Rach made the decision to take me out and play disc golf. One of her friends, Brad Gardner, who may or may not ever see this, played there, and so we went out to Brawny Creek. We brought our lunch, and the rest was history. It's addicted from the first throw for sure.
And this
That's
is
Do you remember
your
what those 3 discs were?
Oh, like literally the Canadian Tire, essentially Franklin brand. It wasn't even Franklin back then. I'm not getting rid of them ever, but I remember too. I had to throw the putter in the mid range because Rach got the driver, the one that went further. But it's probably the best thing ever that I was throwing that mid range and putter instead of the driver.
I'm impressed. That's remarkably consistent with Rachel's story. I was curious if there was going to be a different. Well, no, I was the one that wanted to go out, but she was like, "No, I was the one that brought us out for the first time."
See, it's her fault, and I can always that way too.
So
She's to blame as well.
This is now your, I think, 10th year as a pro. I think you went pro in 2014.
Yeah, I think my first year I played AM2 for 2 tournaments. Then AM1 the second year, and then the third year was pro and nothing but.
Mm-hmm. And you haven't looked back. You can't.
No.
So,
Thank God. I mean, yeah. I haven't looked back yet. There's still tons of great players, though. It's kind of fun to see all the new names every year competing, throwing 1,000-rated rounds, and it's just kind of a shifting landscape of phenomenal players with all the good old ones like Marty Handel, Greg Gruber. That's still sticking around. Just creating an unrealistic challenge sometimes.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. How have you sort of seen the competition sort of change over the last decade? You're obviously able to keep up with them.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's a certain intangible with disc golf sometimes. Like there's a lot of really skilled players out there, especially skilled young players. And I don't think skill always translates to consistency. And disc golf is a game of consistency. So I think just sometimes being around a lot longer, you develop kind of a disc golf wisdom. It helps out a lot, but it is scary to see how far some of these guys throw because there's a distinct advantage when your upshot on a 500-foot hole is less than 100 feet versus the alternative.
Yeah, I was playing with a 16-year-old, Nick, and I forget his last name. But like every single time I felt like I threw one of my furthest drives on a hole, he out threw me by like 100 feet. Playing MA2 now, but I wish I could remember his last name, but he's going to be shredding at a much higher level not too long from now.
It's not Stassen. Nick Stassen?
Yep, that's it.
There you go.
Yeah, we were playing that downhill par 5, and I feel terrible because it's one of my home courses, but I'm terrible with numbers at Kings Forest. But the one that we moved the basket, and it's now over by the pond. Right. I threw a great drive. The person throwing after me threw a great drive, and they were both, 350, 400 feet out there, something like that. And the group that was there was like up, throwing their up shots, and they'd moved up and they were about to putt by the basket, and he like buzzed them, and we all felt terrible because we were like, well, there's no way he's throwing as far as where they are, so we don't need to say 4. It's got to be a depth perception thing. But it was like 10 feet off of them as they were putting out. Kid's got an arm, so we'll see where he goes, but it's like scary from a 16 or 17-year-old.
500 feet is like well within the reach of probably half a dozen young kids right now in Ontario, so super impressive.
It's amazing. It's going to be exciting to see which ones make that jump up to the Pro Tour, because there's going to be some.
I think so.
So
Alejandro and Ricky.
Yeah, absolutely guaranteed. So ODSA. So right now, I think the ODSA it's disc sports. It's not just disc golf. Is that was it originally formed to sort of represent both sports, and is that the plan going forward, or is it going to change?
Or I'll give you a brief history of the ODSA right now. So it was originally formed by Chris Locock, who now runs Project Canada, or is at least involved with Project Canada. I'm not sure if he runs it anymore. It was initially a ultimate organization. It was called the Disc Involvement Society of Canada, which acronym is DISC, right? And it was changed to the ODSA eventually. It was heavily ultimate programming. Ultimate has always been a lot larger than disc golf traditionally. There was a lot of money in leagues. There was a necessity for insurance and for training through the OFSA high school circuit. And so it was really an Ultimate organization at first. Ultimate kind of took off on its own. There's another group called Ontario Ultimate. There's the Canadian Ultimate Association as well. And so it became less important that we insure those groups and that we offer that programming because it kind of did take off in subsidiaries on its own. And then that's where disc golf picked up with the ODSA. And for a while there, we were kind of straddling the line between the two. And in order to be funded in Ontario, or to be responsible, PSO, Provincial Sports Organization, for a sport, you have to be recognized by a national sports organization. The issue is we are not just an Ultimate organization anymore. Much to the contrary, we're far more heavily disc golf related. And so our NSO, which was Ultimate Canada, chose to, and rightfully so, no longer recognize us as their PSO. And so we had kind of gone through a transition where we wouldn't receive funding. We're still the recognized PSO for Ontario for disc sports, or for disc golf, but there is no NSO right now. There's no national sports organization for disc golf that is funded by Sport Canada. And so that's what we're working on doing right now. But we made that transition. We no longer insure any Ultimate clubs in Ontario. We don't host any Ultimate programming or facilitate any of it. And so this is going to be the Ontario Disc Golf Association. Moving forward, you'll see that transition for branding coming up this year. But it's also streamlined the way we provide insurance, the insurance premiums we have to pay, and kind of the programming that we can focus on. So that's the brief history of the ODSA and kind of where we're going.
Galen mentioned in the intro that you're the president of the ODSA, or soon to be ODGA. Did I get that right in my head? Yeah. How long have you been in that role, and what does that role kind of entail for you?
Oh, longer than I can remember at this point. Back in the day, I will say there was for the first 2 years being part of the ODSA, I was the director, not the president. It's a totally different role. We had government funding. It wasn't much. It was south of $30,000 a year to implement programming for OFSA, for high school training, etc. So those first 2 years were kind of spent doing that. Then I came on the nonprofit portion of the board, so to speak, and have been doing that, I want to say, for about 7 years now. And so that just, involves meeting with our board, which has expanded kind of exponentially over the last couple of years, kind of delegating tasks, the programming, the initiatives that we currently have running, and budgeting kind of what we're doing into the future for our 3 and 5 year plans moving forward. A good opportunity to clarify that, and I said this during our tournament, the ODSA is not publicly funded. No one gets paid here. This is something where we fundraise every single cent that we then distribute to our initiatives, like the Junior Disc Golf Little Heisers program that we're looking to run, as well as the OCC, the tour, funding our TDs, etc. It's just all fundraised grassroots wise.
So you mentioned the Junior Heisers. So what is the Junior Heisers, and what other initiatives and sort of mini tours or programs does the ODSA or the ODGA are you going to be launching, or are you working?
We call them ODSA for now because we haven't formally changed. But yeah, so our Little Heisers program is a program initiative that we started this year. Usually different protocols, let's say, for the OCC tour as far as registration goes. We've had underrepresented demographic protocols where, for women's demographics or divisions at least, we ask TDs that are part of the tour to open up the women's divisions, preserve at least 30% of their spots in the tournament for at least 48 hours to help with that bottleneck with the kind of rush to the first across the line registration that we currently have. So that was an initiative that we were able to implement to promote women registering for tournaments, or at least provide some equity there. With the Little Heisers program, we're looking to pay for every junior disc golfer's first OCC event this year. We are not getting a ton of variety in the juniors we have playing these events. We're getting a lot of repeat customers, the Diagianas, the Okrafkas, the a number of other, the Dowdles, etc. But we're not seeing much many new players enter that kind of arena. And so we want to promote this as much as we can. And we feel that one way to do that is to offer to pay for the first time. It's no risk to those families, but we want to see these things growing. We want to see the junior portion of our sport. It's the entry level, right? If we don't get new players into our sport at that level, we're both not going to be have much longevity. But also the way we're funded, the way that municipalities view us when we're proposing new courses, it needs to be a family-friendly sport. And so if we can show that those demographics are being represented in the competitive spectrum, it's far easier to convince people to install these resources. That's one of them. I'm going to go into the other one now. So the OCC Tour, the Ontario Club Championship. If you visit Ontario Club Championships I want to say .ca, but it could be .com. Ontario Club. I'm sure it's .com. Okay, OntarioClubChampionship.com. Our mission's up there as well. So back in the day, we tried a few things as far as tracking player statistics and performances throughout the season in Ontario, and kind of creating a microcosm of like our top players and something, a continuum for players to compete within Ontario, the players that couldn't go to the DGPT events or, get onto the global masters rankings. Those things didn't exist back in the day. And we noticed that there was a distinct kind of disproportionate representation. There were really great amateur players who would stay in AMP2 all year, sandbag for lack of a better term, and win these things. And we thought, you know what, there's got to be more meaning that we can help establish within this kind of circuit in Ontario. And so the Ontario Club Championship was proposed, where we then built kind of a certain camaraderie, where it's not just an individual sport. This is almost a team sport in that you're representing your home club here. And we're kind of incentivizing home clubs to, develop the full spectrum of players, the juniors, the age protected, the women, the men, and have representation at all these events. And so we thought, what better way than to develop a club championship, not just an individual championship, where your club earns points throughout the season. You can show camaraderie, support. Players have fundraised for other players to compete in these events. And then we had equal representation across Ontario as far as where these locations for the events are being selected. It's also a great excuse to qualify players for our provincial championship at the end of the year too. So it adds depth and kind of meaning to what might otherwise just be kind of, bi-weekly events that we have across the province. There's now something to it. And so that's an initiative that we thought was really important as far as developing kind of the meaning and the community in Ontario disc golf.
So within
100%.
the OCC,
and
go ahead.
Sorry, Shad. I was going to say, as somebody that's played both individual and team sports, there's a very different vibe to both of those. If you feel like you're competing for just yourself, obviously, like I try to get along with anybody, but it's easy to have tensions get a little bit higher. But if you're playing like a random mixed doubles, or you're playing in like a GTA Cup style event, when there's like a team to go back to and that sense of camaraderie, I feel like it benefits everyone. You might have a little bit of like tension to a certain degree with the teams you're playing against, but really, I think you're just happy to be part of something bigger than yourself. And when you have the opportunity to be in a bunch of different teams, I think people all recognize that you're there for the right reasons, enjoying each other's company. It just lends a different sort of atmosphere to it. And I love that you're promoting that through the OCC.
Thanks, Gil.
So how do you win the club championship?
So it's pretty straightforward. Again, visit OntarioClubChampionship.com if you want kind of more specific details. But every time a member of your club who is registered with the ODSA, and when you register with the ODSA, we ask you what your affiliated club is. Every time a member of your club wins a division at an OCC Tour event, your club receives a point. Jane Anderson-Retton's our stat fact checker on the back end. She literally contacts every single winner to confirm that your club is correct on the back end, and she is adamant that everything be 100% accurate. She keeps Excel sheets on this, but our standings are usually posted within the week following the event, so you get updates there. At season's end, each region. So again, because representation differs greatly between regions where there's, say, the luxury of having a couple hundred club members versus, Sudbury, Thunder Bay, etc. We've done this regionally. So the North, East, West, and South all have different divisions and championships. At season's end, the winning team receives a band wrap from the ODSA with the members who have contributed or were part of that team and earning points. You throw it on your practice basket. We currently have one going, the new one going onto the practice basket of Bronte. This year, we're going to have a much harder time winning it because White Spruce is an awfully powerful team. But Kempville, Barrie, and Niagara, I think, were the other teams that won it in their respective regions last year too. So they'll be putting those up shortly.
As a member of White Spruce and a very poor member of poorly playing member of White Spruce, I'm glad that other people are doing the heavy lifting for me on Let's Go Spruce.
You know what's nice though? It is every division too. So, first of all, Jane is a absolute beast because she wins every single FA60 tournament in Ontario. But
world champ
as well.
World champ.
Your junior players in the junior 12, junior 15, junior 10 division, or the one woman who might sign up for FP50 in a tournament and not have necessarily competition, she's still earning your club a point because we're not going to restrict it to just divisions that the tournament's going to host. So they sign up. The TD goes, well, we're going to have to move you to a different division. Well, you've now earned that point for that division because you're at least sending someone to represent your club in that division. And I think that's a meaningful thing. There are certain gaps in Ontario tournaments. It's not something that TDs can do anything about because we're usually limited to a finite number of spots at our events. You can't offer every division, but it would be nice to see a little bit more diversity in what we do offer, at least those growth sectors of our sport, which is the juniors and women's divisions right now.
So go ahead, Robbie.
I was just going to say, staying on the OCC, from a tournament director's perspective, if you're running a tournament in Ontario and you want to get your tournament on to the Ontario Club Championship, how do you go about doing that? Is it still possible to get on for this year? And if not, what do you have to do to get on next year?
Good question. So next year's applications are open on our website right now. We had a deadline, I believe, if I had to recall, it was November 1st last year. It's going to be a bit earlier, but we are opening up the application process a bit earlier this year too. There's a quick diatribe you have to enter there. It's a HubSpot form, so you're not really spending too much time on that, but just to submit your event, your prospective dates, why you think you'd be a fit, and then just a bit of an agreement. We do have certain policies regarding matching your men's and women's divisions for events. So if you offer MA1, you have to offer FA1. If you offer MP40, you have to offer FP40. Just some equitable policies that we have there. You apply. We have a report card system. If a region has multiple events that apply to represent said region, we'll contact those TDs and we'll kind of speak a little bit further with them. There are a few regions this year where 2 to 3 events had applied to represent each region. So we did that we kind of do a blind report card or a scorecard for them with our entire competition committee. And ultimately, the event that could best serve the Ontario community is the one that's chosen.
And then also for the TDs of those tournaments, what are kind of the benefits that they get for signing up for the OCC tour?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that too. So first of all, you're going to be throwing 3 qualifiers per division from AM2 to FA2 and higher to the provincial championships at the end of the year. So it's an incentive for your players to register for said event. I know we have a lot of events that are going to sell out regardless in Ontario, but there are kind of fringe events. There's events in, for instance, Stone's Throw, Gaps Gambit, these things that are kind of in Sault Ste. Marie, Enterprise, Ontario, Kempville, Ontario, where especially come the end of the year, these are things that are going to incentivize players to register for these events. So that definitely holds a certain cachet or weight. We do support there is a sanctioning fee that goes towards the provincial championship at year's end. So those who do qualify and end up playing in the provincial championships, every event organizer or TD is contributing a per player fee towards that final event so that you receive the benefit of that extra funding. But the ODSA also funds our TDs by giving them direct funding support. So we are currently running a mega raffle. You saw this at the King's Forest event. It's on social right now, but we're going to be pushing it pretty heavy over the next 2 weeks. Ends April 1st. We have a really cool donation from Pound Disc Golf and Prodigy Disc Golf. We've got 2 Pound Rufus bags and then a custom Rufus, which is worth probably $1 billion right now. But we're running this to help fund our junior initiative as well as support our TDs this year. We're hoping to raise at least $5,000, and so each one of our TDs will receive $750 or more in direct support from the ODSA as well for being part of the tour. We're also we have the Pound Traveling Ace Hole, which you saw at King's Forest on hole 15. Every event will receive those band wraps and the infrastructure if it's feasible, but they'll get the band wrap at the very least, and they'll be able to throw it on whatever easy hole they want to see aced. And so if anyone aces that hole at their event, they'll receive those pound bag options we had on that. And as well, you're contributing to your OCG points for your club. So you get to be part of the tour. You get the luxury of our assistance fundraising as well. If you need any help with that, we've got a ton of templates on our website and experience between, I think we've got 3 Canadian national TDs on the board, and we'll give you whatever you want as far as what we've used in the past and seen succeed as well.
I just want to take issue with you saying that hole 15 was.
I think you might have muted yourself there, buddy.
I don't know if I'm going crazy. Yeah, no, I can't hear Sean even remotely.
Can you hear me?
Oh, this podcast is so much better now. Oh,
no, Sean, we
amazing.
can't hear you. We might have lost Sean. Sean's.
Oh
Sean's
no, it's okay. We can just cut the video. Just you, me, and Chris. We can hang out for a bit. It's all good.
Yeah. We'll just phase him out.
We don't have to ask about his crazy ideas for like a random FPO fantasy league where the decisions are taken at random and
Sean's a madman.
No.
Yeah.
Sean's doing some wild things, but
bring up that might be good in his absence because it's a really good point. I think he asked a question actually recently on the Disc Golf Ontario board about casual relief during tournaments, which might be a good topic to discuss right now because I learned. Someone who's run over 80 events learned something from this discussion too, and from what the PDGA's response was. I'm still a little miffed that there's not a clear definition, but Sean had asked about casual relief during PDGA events. So casual relief from water is effectively what he was asking. At the King's Forest Open, because we'd had kind of a wet few days beforehand, we had noted some areas where we had marked them off. They were casual because they were muddy and mucky, and I didn't want players to have to play from them. But unbeknownst to me, there were also a few kind of, we'll call them puddles in the fairway. So I was asked, can we take casual relief from these wet areas in the fairway? And I said, well, I don't think they're that serious. After the fact, I said, I think you kind of have to play the lie that you're left with. Oftentimes, if it means you have to do a standstill, so be it. It's kind of the penalty for throwing in a certain area. The PDGA did come back with a definition for those areas, which would be puddles count as a body of water, and if the TD does not discuss those specific areas beforehand in a tournament, then they do count as casual relief. So if you are in anything that can be considered a puddle moving forward and the TD hasn't told you beforehand you do not get casual relief, you absolutely can take casual relief from these areas. So something he brought up, something I learned, again, what's a puddle? Is it water sitting clearly above the ground, or is it a moist area of grass? I don't know, but it's just food for thought moving forward. I think I've played plenty of tournaments, especially in the spring in Ontario, where that circumstance is going to come up quite a bit.
100%. That's always going to come up at spring in Ontario. Shawnee, can we hear you yet, buddy?
Testing.
Yes. Yeah, we got you.
I'm back. Okay.
So
so that question had come up on Reddit. So it was fresh on my mind. And when the question was asked, and there was another player, I think he was an MPO, he was quite adamant that TDs had to declare puddles to be to have casual relief, or it's not. And that's not right. Like that's wrong. And so I asked the PDGA because I wanted to be, maybe I was wrong. Like I read the rule book and I was pretty certain I wasn't wrong. And I like being right and arguing about nerdy things like rules. And so I asked the PDGA and they came back and they clarified it, and I was quite happy they didn't. It's just an opportunity to learn and make sure that everybody is on the same rule book. Provisionals are just a pain to track sometimes, and so if we can avoid it, then cool. It's awesome.
I wonder if it was the same person within the PDGA that responded to both of your questions.
It was, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's with the rules committee. And they got back to me, the next day, and it was um, super easy to ask the question, and they were quite clear and concise, and it was great support. I was glad that I reached out.
Love that. Well, speaking of the nuances of tournaments, wanted to sort of jump into something we touched on briefly before about, sort of life as a TD. Sometimes perhaps a thankless job. You've run some really successful tournaments. I think I got to say some of my favorite tournaments that I've played have been Chris Ozolins run tournaments. Do you want to maybe touch briefly, if you don't mind, Chris, on things that you like about being a TD, things that you see as perhaps challenges, and what that experience is like?
Sure, thanks. And I'm going to give a shout out to Marcus Schmidt too for helping. He was my co-TD for the Kings Forest Lucky Lines.
Lucky
Check him out,
Lines.
luckylines.com or .ca. Sorry.
.ca.
.ca. Anyways, he was my co-TD, and he was someone who was genuinely interested in running more events. So it was kind of an introduction or a crash course, and he was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question, to be honest. I don't know how candid I want to be, but
as candid or not candid as you wish. Whatever you're comfortable with, man.
To be honest, we had the Brawny Classic at Brawny Creek Disc Golf Course. I remember doing the artwork for the disc, and then it was kind of like laid on me. Okay, you're going to be running this then, right? Oh no, I just thought I was drawing kind of a picture for you. You're going to run this. So, kind of thrust into it myself. I thoroughly enjoy the reason I'm even invested beyond just playing in the sport is because I'm a firm believer in the lack of a better term, the power of disc golf. It's something that has brought extra meaning to my life, to an enjoyment to my life, and so I think my ability to share that gives me some sense of fulfillment as well. And so as a TD, I'm sharing this competitive continuum with a lot of people. I'm introducing them to the sport for the first time, which is one of my best kind of memories of disc golf, was playing an event for the first time. I met Carl Forbes at my first event, made a lifelong friendship there, and quite a few other people who I've since spent hundreds of hours of my life with. But yeah, just kind of paying it forward and trying to do it right in a way that can bring meaning to other people has always been kind of fulfilling, to be honest. Sometimes I think, and I worry about this for TDs, and I've seen new TDs go through the same thing. There's a certain expectation, I think, when you take money from people, that they're entitled to kind of your time, right? They're entitled to your efforts. And yeah, you do have a transaction. I'm promising you that because you paid for my tournament, I'm going to do my best to provide that good time for you. But it's almost like sometimes that transaction is it goes beyond that to some degree. And I think that's the detractor. Sometimes people need to appreciate that, this is not a profitable, this isn't something we're drawing benefit for ourselves, other than we want to run this kind of successful big event. We want to support our sponsors so they continue to sponsor us for these things, and we want to see you happy, right? That ultimately, that's what I want to see for all of my players. Yeah, it's just sometimes it ends up being thankless, and that's the frustrating part. But there are so many people who kind of do show the gratitude for okay, you've spent a lot of time doing this. We appreciate it. That it just continues to motivate. And you can ask other TDs in Ontario. I know Spencer Young's a TD who's doing quite a bit of TDing and has run into frustrating situations too. And we're only human, so it's natural that we would. But yeah, I love seeing new TDs, and that's one thing I hope that, I don't know if it requires an initiative, but across Ontario we have been seeing quite a few new TDs as of late, because it was kind of an old guys club for a while there, and that's refreshing. It's refreshing to see and get to travel to these different areas, go see Corey Murdoch and just south of Sault Ste. Marie, or even this year the knock was taken over by some of the people who shadowed at Nationals last year, Luke and Matt, and so it's really kind of refreshing to see that. But yeah, to add a really long answer to a really short question, it's just paying it forward, honestly. I love seeing our sport grow, and that competitive side of it is what really kind of keeps me here now, and I want to see that grow too.
One of the things that I saw that's scheduled at Nationals this year out in BC is a tournament director boot camp almost, or the tournament director 101 class. Um, is that something that you could see the soon to be Ontario Disc Golf Association sort of trying to do, like teaching people how to TD?
Mm-hmm.
I know
So
that.
during COVID,
Sorry.
actually, Sean, this is good. We had sessions during COVID because there was nothing else to do,
Sure.
where we held actual live Zoom sessions, and we have, because of it, kind of these great templates and resources now, not just for TDs, but how to start a club and build a constitution was one of those things. Because in order to be an insured club in Ontario, there are certain um,
Rules.
steps you need to go through in order to do this, to have to receive a COI, to have your liability covered to operate in a public park or what have you. And then we did do some TD options too. We did fundraising. We did, so you want to run your first tournament. We did kind of some advanced knowledge pieces there as far as budgeting. But these are things that like I would love to continue to do, honestly. It's tough to do like the in-person piece of this because there's a lot of like, I'm going to do an hour after work today, I'm going to do 2 hours tomorrow, but just kind of providing the resources and a little bit of insight is always awesome. I know Chris Brown is looking for some help with Bronny Classic, or sorry, Bronny and the Beast right now, and he's a great resource. He's run a couple events now, but I would say the best way to do it in Ontario is to find a TD who's run a couple events and shadow them as much as you can. But we're hoping to provide just kind of resources. We have these sessions filmed too, and so those will be up on the new website as well.
One of the things I liked, Patrick with Peacebridge, he's had a few sort of shadow a TD tournament, so that people can help co TD or just sort of watch and learn during events, and I don't know, maybe some other TDs can sort of offer that as well. Might be interesting.
It's a good idea.
From a player's perspective, I know you mentioned, you've TD'd all over Ontario. Actually, from like a personal perspective, my first tournament was run by you. I think probably like my first 4 events, with the Bronny Creek Classic, and then Ontario Flex Tour tournaments, including the one out in Fireman's, the opening there. And then I don't know if you even remember, but I was reaching out to you in 2017 or 2018 trying to get a course in Orangeville, which I never ended up doing, but hopefully someone can pick that up eventually. But you've been all over Ontario. From a player's perspective, if you had to choose, and maybe you can shout out like a couple, is there a particular place across Ontario that you just love going to the most for the course, but also, maybe the surrounding area, the club environment, or the environment of the people there? Where gets you really excited to travel to in Ontario?
Oh, that's a good question.
Bronte Creek.
Yeah, well, honestly, I love Bronny Creek. It's my home, but like, never have I ever been like, you have a tournament there. It's like any other day, right? It's not really exciting to travel to, unfortunately. Um, I'm a massive fan, obviously, of Thunder Bay. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made the effort to run nationals there. I believe in those courses and that community. I think it's kind of like Ontario outside of Ontario. It's just far enough away. I also love like South River. Heading up to the Black Fly Fling is a tournament that I hadn't done for a couple of years because it was conflicting with Foxwood, but I kind of went back to it last year and I went, oh man, I can't not play this tournament moving forward. And it is like, it's a vibe thing. It's like the course is good. South River is good. Jody Slade just built turf pads there, so it's even better now. And Mike is running the event. And he's such a sweetheart. But yeah, I don't know. Did like South River, Thunder Bay. I don't know. Name. You guys name one too. Where's your kind of that magic place for you in
Well,
Ontario.
nationals last year, I loved it so much that I'm going back for knock this year. It wasn't really initially in my plans when I saw it, but as soon as registration opened, standard me, signed up in 30 seconds because I don't waste any time for registrations these days.
We're well trained now in Ontario. 30 seconds is like too much, right?
It's true. I mean, Christie Lake, I think was sold out in that time, probably close to that. But yeah, I loved it out in Thunder Bay last year. I drove, and the drive itself was like just an incredible experience. But then the three courses out there, I said when I left, Birch Point is maybe one of the best park courses I've ever played in a public course, or in a public park. I mean, it was fantastic, and same with Bayview and Dragon Hills. I didn't quite do as well at Dragon Hills as Kalen Chat, but I had a great time there nonetheless. And the vibe of it, like you said, maybe the most important thing about a tournament, especially for me at an amateur level, is the vibe of it. And I didn't want to leave when I was out there. So Thunder Bay is probably going to get my vote.
I love hearing that. I love it.
Sean, what about you guys?
Huntsville was a blast last year. Really, really liked that tournament. Spencer did a fantastic job. The whole TT team did a fantastic job. The courses were a lot of fun to play. Great turnout. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I haven't played any tournaments or any courses down in Southwest Ontario. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting down there sometime this year. Or Eastern Ontario. I want to try and do the Eastern Amateurs this year. Yeah, Huntsville was a blast last year.
Flats Classic is back on the OCC tour this year too. Clayton McCaffrey's running that. So speaking of Southwestern Ontario, Flats is like kind of a classic. It's Barry Schultz, Paulo Labari, Nate Sexton. They've all come up and played that course in that event. So Ken Climo, definitely worth it. Definitely worth the trip.
Okay, it's on the list.
And yeah, of course. I got to shout out Sudbury. I was worried when we were all going through our favorite stops here that it was going to be used up, and I was going to think of a second choice by the time we got to me. But the first time I played Sudbury was with two good friends of mine I've known since high school, Brad and Graham Sharp, and it just was something that was closer to home for them, and we all made the effort to go up with another friend of mine, Dave Cross from Milton, and love the hell out of it. Playing an ice bowl in like February with like several inches of snow. But the people there were great. Went up for like a practice round on a Friday afternoon, met Thomas and then later Alicia Hums. Had a wonderful time. Such a welcoming club, a great little disc golf community. And I heard for years you have to go back to the Blueberry Brawl. It's going to be, your favorite tournament ever. And then last year I finally did. I guess 2 or 3 years later. And expectations, which were high, were still blown out of the water. So shout out to the Sudbury DGC.
That's a really good one. Really good one. It's funny. It reminds me when you say Sudbury and the Blueberry Brawl. This is like case in point of like how much our sports exploded. I used to go up to that event when they may have gotten 28 to 30 people playing it. Now people are fighting hand over fist to get into that event because they've realized that, wow, this is a phenomenal kind of course and community. Yeah, it's just great for the sport. Explosion of, everyone's willing to drive 5 hours north to play a tournament for the weekend. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and as an added bonus, I got to go to a local bar, order a beer, and hear somebody play Sudbury Saturday night in Sudbury on a Saturday night, and can't beat that.
I get a shot of blueberries before your round. Which where else do you get that ever? So that
nowhere
right there.
It needs to be more of a thing. I agree. I'm totally down with this. So we don't want to take too much more of your time. So looking ahead to this year, how are you feeling about 2024? What are you looking forward to? What do you see as, sort of what's going to take this year to sort of the next level above 2023, which was already an amazing year?
Personally, or for Ontario as a whole?
Yes.
Okay.
Both.
Broad strokes.
Yeah.
I'll say this: I didn't think I would TD an event this year after doing nationals last year. That was a ton of work, so much more than I anticipated. We did this one for fun. I'm going to host the Newcastle event too because that's a lot of fun. I love those guys out there. But personally, I was injured for the entire duration of last year, shoulder and elbow injury, and it's gone now. I did physio all year. I feel fantastic. I have registered for 3 Disc Golf Pro Tour events and counting. I'm going to go play Worlds this year. I'm not getting any younger. I'm in my 30s still, but just I'm really looking forward to enjoying playing and competing and being healthy and seeing where we can go with this. It's for me, it's like you only live once, like you said, and it's time to give it a little bit of a try. As far as our sport in Ontario goes, I mean, something I've seen personally is that there's just that much more initiative across the board compared to what it used to be. Even the people like in the microcosm of the ODSA board, everyone has their own initiative now. It never was like that. It's like they all have big ideas and are capable of executing them. And I love seeing that. And that's true across Ontario. There's people popping up where I'm like, that person's going to help elevate this region. That person's going to help elevate this region. And they all feel like they're empowered to do so. And so, I mean, our sport's going to continue to grow in popularity because it's just a fantastic sport. And I just see people who are getting more confident that, the way they're doing the things they're doing is working. And so, that's exciting. We're going to see a ton more courses too. Like the opportunities are starting to present themselves organically rather than having to pursue them. So I'm really excited to go play new courses too as they pop up, as the Kevin Farleys, the Darryls, the Jeff and Kara's, or if I get lucky enough to design 1 or 2 this year, it's a really fun time.
I love that. I don't know if I don't know what courses were there, but I had a really sort of interesting experience at the start of my disc golf career, which was a long time before I picked it back up. 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there. I visited some of my cousins out in Campbell River. And I think just as an excuse to drink some beer and partake in some extracurricular substances, they went to the local disc golf course to throw pieces of plastic around at Cooper's Hawk in Campbell River. And I fell in love instantly. Bought an old Discraft Z Wasp, Elite Z Wasp, and 1 or 2 other beater drivers, and loved it. Brought them home, and then as like a 14 or 15-year-old at the time, I wasn't going to ask my parents to drive me 35, 40 minutes to whatever facsimile of Google Maps existed at the time was the closest course to me. So I just sort of put those discs in a box in the basement, let them sit for a while. But I love that if there's somebody that's picking up disc golf, not in 2008, but in 2024, they're going to have a whole lot more options wherever they are to find a course, fall in love with it, and fall in love with the sport. Because I mean, for my money, there are a few sports that offer the same opportunity to very quickly fall in love with it and to meet a community as disc golf. So I absolutely love that. As Sean said, I mean, we're sensitive. We've already taken up almost an hour of your time, which is very kind of you to give to us. So perhaps, looking to one of the last questions we'll ask you, any sort of final thoughts about Ontario disc golf? Do you want to shout out your sponsors? I know you were, if not the first, one of the first pro disc golfers sponsored by ThoughtSpace Athletics. Any sort of closing thoughts you want to share? And thanks for hanging out with us, man. Appreciate it.
First of all, thanks for having me. I actually spoke with Josh Sachs last night too. He's doing a bit of a debrief for winners of events in Ontario this year, and you guys having this kind of collaborative podcast. First of all, thanks for doing this. This is awesome as far as building, our community up and at least connecting each other to kind of a central knowledge base. So thank you. Complete indicator of where our sport's going right now is that, you guys and Josh and a few other folks are interested in doing this and have the audience for it. I want to thank ThoughtSpace Athletics. Thank you guys, who have sponsored me for the last, I want to say 3 years, 4 years now. I can't even remember. Aaron Wilmot and Paul and Chase they are fantastic. I've stayed at Aaron's place. He's I've never asked him to sponsor something where he said no in Ontario. So not only is he sponsoring me, I think he sponsored probably 24 Ontario events by now. Just sending us things for free or sending cold hard cash north of the border, so that we throw a few more Pathfinders, but at the same time, our tournaments are well funded. Pound Disc Golf too has over the last 2 years sent probably solid disc. Pound Disc Golf sent probably a dozen bags to us over the last 2 years now too,
Wow.
in order to support our raffles, in order to support Canadian Nationals that we did in Thunder Bay last year. I actually have there's a nice orange one that's in the raffle this year up there. I just want to thank them. Prodigy sponsored us for the last 2 years, and I say us, I mean the ODSA, Ontario Disc Sports, and tons of people contributed. So I want to thank them and everyone who's playing the events we're hosting or hosting events for us to play or putting courses in. I appreciate it.
One last one for you, Oz. This weekend is the USWDGC. Who you got taking it down?
Well, I would have said Kristen Tatar until Ohn Scoggins absolutely blew my mind last weekend. I'm going to say Kristen Tatar still. I think she there's nothing worse than an angry Kristen Tatar after last weekend. But I want to say completely, absolutely mind blown by Ohn. Highest rated tournament by a FPO player ever. Really, really impressive, especially for someone who can't throw much further than 350 feet to piece that together. I think we were talking about this earlier in the conversation. Sometimes it's consistency and not it's not the extent of any one skill. So congrats to her, but Tatar's taking it down.
No argue with that.
Well,
all right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Galen, go ahead.
No, man, I was going to say, since we all sat in silence there for a half second, I think you, me, and Sean were deciding who was going to have the final word of thanking Chris for hopping on. But super cool. Chris Ozolins, thank you for hanging out with us. Always appreciate your insight, whether it's at a casual round for tags on a Tuesday at Brawny Creek or hanging out on our podcast with us. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. We all really appreciate it.
Thanks, Galen. Thanks, Robbie. And thanks, Sean. See you later.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Welcome back to Miss Mando. Huge thanks to Oz for coming on and joining us. What a great interview, eh, guys?
Yeah, and same as Thomas. I mean, crazy that the first two episodes we have two amazing Canadian pros willing to give us so much of their time.
Yeah, fantastic, and both of them being so courteous with their time as well. It's awesome to and fitting for our podcast as well, covering a lot of Ontario, having the president of the ODSA and KFO champion, like you called him, the King of Kings, for episode 2 was very fitting.
Really liked hearing about the next initiatives that the ODSA is working on. I think it's really going to help grow the sport in Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeps doing amazing things. But moving on a little bit, this weekend coming up, we have the USWDGC United States Women's Disc Golf Championship happening down still in Austin, Texas, where we just left the Pro Tour. But Sean, throwing it over to you. Let's dive a little bit into the USWDGC.
So this is the first PDGA major of the year. Obviously, it's women only. It's a 4-round event with the pros playing Sprinkle Valley, which is a fairly substantial 8,400 foot par 64 course. It's heavily wooded, and sort of looking at fly-throughs and looking at the course map, it seems to be a little more lefty forehand friendly. So maybe that sets up well for Ohn to go back to back. I don't know. This is really amazing. This is the largest women's tournament ever, with almost 350 players coming in from 8 countries, playing 6 different courses. They've got 21 divisions from FPO all the way down to FJ10. The FPO division alone has 101 players, including 3 amazing Canadians. Chantel Badinsky is still down in Texas, and she's gonna play this one too. Gabrielle Lee from Victoria is there, and Toronto's own Kat Johnson has come down to take it on itself. There's also a few other Canadians there. St. Catharines Audrey Lopez is playing in FP 55. Rebecca Dawn from the disc golf dynasty of the Dawn family is playing FJ 18, and my wife Gabby Bivar, she's playing FA 50. Um, and one of the things that I really like is that there are 3 players there who have 2-digit PDGA numbers. Sue Horn, number 68, Cheryl Newland, number 76. They're both playing FP 75. And Tita Ugaldi, PDGA number 86, playing FP 65. They've been, I think all of them, or close to all of them, have been members since 1976, a year after I was born. And you guys don't even say it. Don't even say it. I don't want to know. My sore knees and back just don't want to know. I'm super excited to watch this tournament. I'm super excited to get the stories from my wife when she comes back. She's already run into Cat Merch and got an autograph. There tonight was a clinic with Holland Hanley and Ella Hansen. It's going to be such an incredible event for women's disc golf. Who do you think is going to take it down? Like, what's your prediction? Let's go, Galen.
Yeah, I mean, to invoke our earlier rule, I'm gonna throw 2 names out there because we talked about, if you're gonna be choosing Kristen Tatar at the top, you got to back it up with a second name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about Kristen and Ohn trading blows, and I think that may be a theme going forward. But like we touched on last episode of the pod, it's very difficult to bet against Kristen Tatar. We talked about her not winning back to back, and she didn't win last time, so it's her turn this time, of course. But if Kristen does not take it down, it's funny, the name I had in my head going into this is actually somebody you named just a second ago. I got to be feeling about Holland Hanley here. I don't know why. I can't put any statistics. I can't put any arguments to it. But
she's a fantastic backhand player or forehand player. And if this turns out to be a forehand dominant course, she sets up really well for it.
So this is perfect. I can just name names and Sean can make my arguments for me. I can just have the vibes that exist in my head. But yeah, top choice KT, and in absence of Kristen taking it down, I think we're going to see a strong showing out of Holland Hanley.
Yeah, it's tough to argue with KT on this one. Like Oz said in our interview, Kristen coming off getting absolutely whooped in Austin at the Open at Austin by Ohn. I think she's going to be coming into this with a vengeance. Wanting to bounce back. Even though, like we said in the recap, she played great. She averaged 1,000 at the Open at Austin, and Ohn was just so lights out that there was nothing that she could do. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with Kristen Tatar, but my second place, I'm going to go with Haley King. Can be very streaky, but might potentially be, like I was saying about Cole Redolin. Haley King might have the highest ceiling in the FPO division, with her power, backhand, forehand, great putter as well when she's on. So I got a feeling. I think Haley's going to get it done. Well, no, I think Kristen's going to get it done, and I think Haley's going to come in second. Is really what I'm saying.
I'm going big money Missy. I think, she's had 2 third place finishes. She's had a 9th place finish this year. She's nipping around the edges of that top spot, and I like this course for her. I'm not even going. That's a sweet sig. I'm not even going Kristen to take this down. I'm going Missy Gannon to take it. No backup with Kristen. I'm thinking Silver's going to be on her bag. She's going to be caddying, so she's going to be playing terrible all weekend. I don't even know if Kristen makes the top 10. That's my hot take for this coming weekend. And so Missy Gannon, big money Missy. She's got mine. You want my vote?
If Kristen doesn't make the top 10, I will eat this hat live on the next episode of the pod.
I'll take that bet.
We have that on film now.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
locked in.
It's
That is locked
it's
in
legally
forever. Yeah.
binding. I'm pretty sure. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm
Uh,
pretty sure that's legally binding now.
That wasn't a
I-
joke on a disc golf course. That was recorded live.
I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. Yeah, no, I've never been more confident in anything than
That she will
than
not be
placing
in the
that bet.
that she'll be in the
Yeah,
top 10. I mean, it's a bit of a long shot. I'll
think.
admit. Yeah.
I think
I think Sean should have like a very minor penalty if since I've got this massive bet of eating a hat, like, you know, if Sean like doesn't really like eating like a green bell pepper, like he should have to have a bite of bell pepper on the next episode, like something very minor.
we can figure something out. I might actually. I'm going to look up this stat. I wonder if Kristen Tatar has ever finished outside the top 10 in her career.
She
I'm
has.
willing to bet that the answer of that is no.
She has.
She
I
has.
say it's got to have happened at some point. Probably
Outside
not
of the
very
top
often,
10?
and certainly not very recently.
She only finished outside of the top 5 once last season. I know that it was 6th place, but yeah, something that I can look into, or one of us can look into for next episode. But I think it's a fairly confident bet that you're not going to have to eat that hat, Kalen.
It's
I
probably a
hope
safe
not.
bet.
I got it signed by the members of my other favorite podcast, the Steve Dangle podcast, and I'd be ashamed to have to eat the Sharpie off of this hat.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's a Leafs hat.
No, it's very fortunate.
That might get me some haters on this podcast, considering what province we are in.
2022, the Latitude 64, Tiny Open, 16th place.
Over in, I'm assuming that's over in Europe.
It's somewhere in Europe. I'm not sure where that is.
Interesting. What year did you say that was?
2022.
2022. Wow. So
Yeah.
What is that, like 10 years ago, something like that?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
It was 82 years.
But that might actually be the only time that she's ever finished outside the top 10. So I kind of got lucky guessing that one.
I didn't think it would have happened that often, if at all.
I'm literally scrolling.
It has happened at all.
I'm scrolling through all of her statistics here, and in 2016 she also had a 13th place finish in the Estonian Open. It's probably not much more than that. She might actually be pretty good at this.
My PDGA membership has expired. I have to renew it at some point in the not too distant future. But I wonder what's happened more. I wonder if I have finished in top 10s more, or if Kristen has finished outside of top 10s more.
She's finished.
I don't often find myself
twice.
in top 10s.
No.
Yeah. I'm going to take a look back at my.
I'm taking the under on that one.
History. I know I finished top 10 at least once because I won once, but I don't know how many times other than that I've finished up towards the top of a division. So it might be hotly
tournaments
contested.
with 10 or less players.
For KT or for me?
No, for you.
Of course. I don't play in tournaments with 10 or less players. Don't be silly.
You can't have a top 10 if there's 10 or less people.
Never.
I could sense you trying to find the loophole for that.
No, I want Kristen to win this so I can talk about the fact that she has finished outside of the top 10 less than me, finishing inside or more. Yeah, whatever.
She is something special, but we have been going for quite a while now. This has been a jam-packed episode. A lot of exciting stuff going on in the disc golf world. Ontario Disc Golf is back. There are plenty of tournaments coming up. We're going to have lots of great guests throughout this year, recapping lots of great tournaments. We will be back with you in another 2 weeks to talk about everything in the disc golf world. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Smash the like button. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify if you are more into the audio only type of podcast. But that's going to do it for Miss Mando. I'm Robbie Holden. Joining me, as always, Sean Galbraith and Galen Naidu Harris. We will see you guys in 2 weeks.